I've got another delicious crock pot recipe for you today. We are going to make crock pot meatball subs. And you're like, what? Yes, we're going to slow cook our meatballs all day in our slow cooker, top it on a hoagie, and it's gonna be delicious. If you love meatball subs, you are going to want to try this recipe. Hi, I'm Carrie with eatingonadime.com, and we are on a mission to help families eat well on a budget. Now you can find the full recipe linked in the description, or you can always go to eatingonadime.com and then use our amazing search feature and just type in meatball subs. You're going to love it, and it's easy, and we're actually making our meatballs from scratch. So the flavor is even more amazing than if you were using frozen meatballs. The first thing we're going to do is make our meatballs, and I'm going to start with 2 pounds of ground beef. Now I'm using a leaner ground beef today. Since we are going to be adding a lot of stuff to make our meatballs, you can do a leaner ground beef. You could also do a ground chicken or a ground turkey as well if you're kind of wanting to lower the fat count. I don't personally want to use a higher fat beef because I don't want greasy meatballs. And I just don't think it's necessary on this. Sometimes it is, but not for this. Okay, then we just need to add a cup of breadcrumbs and a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. And we're just adding this all to a mixing bowl. Now you're gonna want a mixing bowl that's enough that you can get in and mix it up. So make sure it's a good size. Don't go small on this mixing bowl. And then 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. Now I'm just using minced garlic from the pre-minced garlic. You can mince your own if you want to. Then we need 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. I'm going to do a teaspoon of salt. And then a half a teaspoon of pepper. And now it's time for us to mix it together. And this is the perfect time to get the kids involved. We're going to use our hands, make sure they're clean-ish. Just kidding. And then you're just going to combine them all together. You can try to be cleaner and use a spoon, but you will go to your hands because it's just impossible to do. So we're just going to mix this all together to get everything combined because the breadcrumbs and that Parmesan cheese is needed in this meatball recipe. That's what makes them so much more flavorful than store-bought meatballs. So you're just going to keep kneading it together. Now at the bottom, you might see like some Parmesan sitting down there. I like to kind of pick it up and put it in the middle just so you can get that worked in more. It's super easy and it's fun to do, especially for the kids. So now we're going to make our meatballs. Now, well, we've already made them, but we're going to make them into meatball shapes. We're going to want them to be about 1 to 2 inches. We're going a little bit closer to the 2 inches today just because we want that pretty lineup on our hoagie rolls. But I mean, really, this is up to you. If you prefer your meatballs smaller, you can go smaller. If you prefer them bigger, you can go bigger. Let me just see. I do think that you should try to make them about the same size because they'll cook more evenly. So if you decide to go with more 1 inches, go with 1 inches. Now, when let me just show you how to do it if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're somebody that's never cooked watching. You're just going to grab like a handful, kind of quickly do a quick roll, and it's going to be really lumpy, and just compare it. I'm like, okay, you need to add more or take away. I'm going to take away a little bit. Then it's time for you to actually do your serious roll. And you want to put some pressure onto it so you can get that good roll. That way you can get that pretty shape. My sister is way better at this than I am, just FYI. If you're not a professional meatball, it's okay because they're still going to taste good. So you eyeball it first, kind of get it in a ball, measure it, looking pretty good actually, and then start rolling. And the more you do, you'll get better at guessing how much to do to pick up. So I just pick out a portion, get it in a ball shape. Don't be perfect. Come by, kind of measure. I just want to take a little bit off. And then you're going to go back and in between your hands, kind of a flattened surface, roll it around. You can cut your hands like this. It's just hard for you to see if I do that right now. So you can get that pretty ball shape. You just want them to be pressed together well so they don't fall apart when you're cooking them. Now we're going to heat up a cast iron skillet, or you can use a non-stick pan, and we're just going to drizzle a little bit of oil in there so we can brown our meatballs. And this is just so it doesn't stick. I'm going to let this heat through for just a minute, so that way the meatballs are, I can brown them really quickly. Now I'm just going to add these by hand. Now when you're browning the meatballs, make sure you don't overcrowd the pan. You're going to have to work in batches, because when you overcrowd the pan, they won't brown as fast. So you're actually causing yourself more work, and it takes longer than if you just work in batches. I'm going to do one more. After just a little bit, when they start, you can kind of see it start browning on the bottom. I like to use my tongs to scrape it up underneath it, just to make sure it doesn't fall apart if it is sticking. And then just flip it completely over. Now we don't have to get all the sides perfectly browned. We can if you want to, like on this one, you could do it sideways like this. But we don't really have to do that in this recipe since we're slow cooking it to finishing it. We're just doing this so that way they don't stick inside the crock pot and then fall apart when we're slow cooking it. Once you've gotten them all browned, we're just going to place them in the crock pot. So we did another batch of browning, and now they're all in the crock pot ready to go. Now we're just going to make our sauce. You're going to need 2 cans of crushed tomatoes. And remember, you can get the full recipe linked in the description, or you can go to eatingonadime.com and you can just use our search feature. It's super easy to make, so you can get make sure you can print it and save it and all of that. So we're just going to pour this right on top. And we're just basically making like a homemade spaghetti sauce, marinara sauce. You don't have to mix it all together, because that's the glory of a crock pot. You just throw everything in and let it cook and mix it together. So we don't have to dirty up another bowl. We're going to do a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of pepper, then a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. We use this, remember, in the meatball recipe. Some people have said that they can't find Italian seasoning in their area. I guess it's just not readily available everywhere, but we actually have a recipe on how to make Italian seasoning as well. Cool. And then last, we're gonna do some fresh parsley. You can do dried parsley, but the fresh is really great in this recipe. But if you do dried, because we need about a 1/4 cup of this chopped up, you're not going to need but a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, because it's dried, so it shrinks up and it's a lot smaller. Maybe more than a teaspoon. So I'm just going to grab these ends and just start running my knife through them. And we just need about a 1/4 of a cup, but I'm just going to eyeball it today because honestly, too much parsley is not going to kill it. That looks a little bit more. So once I just cut it off in the pieces, I kind of turn it and then we just run the knife couple times. I like it a little bit smaller because I have some picky kids who are like, what's the green stuff in there? And they'll be happy. The good news is that since we're slow cooking, this will cook down. So if you have picky eaters, you don't have to panic. And we're going to toss that in. Now I'm just going to give it a quick stir, but you want to be really gentle because of those meatballs. Then we're just going to, so I just kind of made sure all the meatballs were coated with that sauce. So you don't need to do a lot. Then we're just going to add our lid, and we're going to slow cook this for 3 to 4 hours on high or 6 to 8 hours on low. In this recipe, we always kind of have a recommendation of what we prefer, and I prefer either one, honestly. It'll be great if you need to cook it on high or if you want to cook it on low. And we do give that variation from 3 to 4 or 6 to 8 because every crock pot is different. So you know your crock pot, you know how long it's going to take, you know, if it cooks hot or if it doesn't cook as hot. So you use your crock pot and you'll know, and that's why. Like this one doesn't really cook too hot, it cooks about average, so we just kind of have to cook it on the average time. Okay, the meatballs are done. Now we just need to load up our hoagies. Now what you can do is you can just serve this and people can just put them together. Or my sister is an expert at meatball subs, and she really prefers if you load them up and broil them just for a few minutes, because it just makes the cheese nice and melty and it makes them extra special. So you can serve it anyway. If you're feeling really lazy, just say, hey kids, make your subs. So what you want to do is we just have a pan that we're going to load these up. We are doing hoagie rolls, and then we're just going to fill up the meatballs. Depending how big yours are, you'll need 3 to 4. Then you can use your spoon to decide how much sauce you want on there, and you get to pick. I hear extra sauce is the way to go. Place this in here. We're going to continue doing that, but I wanted to show you the cheese. We are using mozzarella slices today. Provolone works great, and Munster is delicious, and you can do that as well. I just like to fold it in half so you can tear it, or just tear it, you know, or use kitchen scissors. So that way you can lay it all the way across, and then you can pop it in the broiler to get that all nice and melted. Now, if you really wanted to, you could put the cheese on first, so that way when your meatballs sit on top, it will help melt it if you want to avoid that step. I don't really like to do that. I like the cheese on top because you get that yummy stretch and deliciousness. Let me find another one. Some of these are not open very nicely. I'm just going to load this up. So it's done. Now we're going to go to the broiler. I'm going to broil it for about 3 to 5 minutes, but watch your broiler because some of them are just hotter than others. We just want them enough to get that cheese nice and melted. They smell amazing. I'm gonna grab one, serve it with like your side salad, some chips, and this is the easiest dinner. You're gonna love it. Their kids are gonna request it on repeat. And also, just FYI, this is an easy recipe that you can easily double, and then you could freeze the leftovers for even quicker dinner. You just throw it in the crock pot and finish out dinner. You're gonna love it. Okay, guys. Make sure you grab the link for the recipe because we have so many tips and tricks on there, and you can get that by going to eatingonadime.com, or you'll find the link and a few other links that will help you out inside the description. And also make sure you like and subscribe. I don't want you to miss any more of our family-friendly recipes, especially our crock pot ones, because I know you love it. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time, friends. Ta!